Imagine waking up every morning feeling like your life is slipping through your fingers. The chaos around you mirrors the storm inside your mind. Tasks pile up. Relationships feel distant. Your purpose? Buried beneath the noise. But what if I told you that nearly 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor discovered something that could change everything about how you live right now? Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire the world had ever known. He commanded legions, decided the fate of nations, and held the weight of civilization on his shoulders. Yet every night he sat alone in his tent, writing to himself, not about politics or war, but about something far deeper, how to organize the chaos of existence itself. He wasn't writing for glory. He was writing to survive. Because Marcus understood something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Life will never be perfectly organized on the outside until you organize what's happening within. The anxiety you feel when you look at your calendar isn't about time management. The overwhelm when you check your messages isn't about productivity. It's about something more fundamental, the absence of internal order. Today, you're going to discover 10 lessons that Marcus Aurelius lived by. Not abstract philosophy, not ancient theory, but practical, transformative wisdom that will show you how to take the scattered pieces of your life and arrange them into something that finally makes sense. These aren't just lessons. They're invitations to rebuild yourself from the inside out. Before we begin this journey together, if this resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your engagement helps this wisdom reach those who are searching for it. And please leave a comment below sharing which lesson speaks to you most deeply. Now let's step into the first lesson. There's a specific kind of suffering that exists in modern life. It's not the dramatic pain of tragedy or loss. It's quieter, more insidious. It's the feeling that you're constantly behind, constantly failing, constantly drowning in responsibilities you never seem to fulfill. You wake up tired. You go to bed anxious. And in between, you move through your day like someone playing a role you never auditioned for. You tell yourself you need better systems, more discipline, a new planner, a better routine. But deep down, you know the truth. The problem isn't your schedule. It's that you've lost touch with why you're doing any of this in the first place. Marcus Aurelius knew this feeling intimately. He would wake before dawn, knowing that the day ahead would demand everything from him. Senators plotting against him, barbarians at the borders, plagues sweeping through Rome, his own body failing him from chronic pain and illness. The easiest thing would have been to let it all overwhelm him, to surrender to the chaos. But he didn't. Instead, he developed a practice that would define Stoic philosophy for millennia, the discipline of organizing life not by controlling external circumstances, but by mastering internal response. And the first lesson he teaches us is perhaps the most radical. Lesson 1. You are not your circumstances. You are how you respond to them. Think about your life right now. Every stressor, every obligation, every person demanding something from you, they exist outside of you. They are external events flowing past like a river. You can't stop the river. You can't redirect its course, but you can choose whether you drown in it or learn to navigate its currents. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This isn't about positive thinking or denial. It's about understanding a fundamental truth. The chaos you experience is often not caused by what's happening to you, but by your resistance to what's happening to you. When you fight reality, reality always wins. When you accept what is and focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your choices, your responses, something shifts. The weight doesn't disappear, but you become strong enough to carry it. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who worked in a high-pressure corporate job. Every morning, his inbox would explode with urgent demands. His calendar was a nightmare of back-to-back meetings. He hadn't seen his family properly in months. One day, he broke down completely. Anxiety attack, hospital visit, the whole collapse. While recovering, he discovered Marcus Aurelius, and he read this: "Confine yourself to the present. Not tomorrow's deadline, not last week's mistake, Just now, this moment, this breath, this choice. He began a practice. Every morning before checking his phone, he would sit in silence and ask himself one question: what is actually within my control today? Not what he wished he could control, not what he feared, just what was genuinely his to manage. Within weeks, something remarkable happened. The workload didn't decrease. The demands didn't soften, but he stopped drowning, because he stopped trying to control the uncontrollable. He organized his life not by doing more, but by releasing what was never his responsibility to carry in the first place. This is where organization truly begins, not with systems and apps, but with radical acceptance of what is yours to hold and what isn't. Your thoughts? Yours. Your effort? Yours. Your integrity? Yours. Other people's opinions? Not yours. The outcome of your work? Not yours. The past? Not yours. The future? Not yours. When you organize your life around this truth, everything changes. The anxiety that comes from trying to control what you cannot control begins to dissolve. You stop wasting energy fighting reality. And suddenly you have space, mental, emotional, spiritual space, to focus on what actually matters. Marcus didn't just survive as emperor because he was powerful. He survived because he knew exactly where his power ended and where acceptance had to begin. He carried the weight of an empire not by being strong enough to hold it all, but by being wise enough to know what was his to carry and what belonged to fate, to the gods, to the natural unfolding of things. Now let's go deeper into the psychology behind why most people's lives feel disorganized, even when they're technically productive. There's a phenomenon psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort you experience when your actions don't align with your values. You say you value health, but you skip the gym. You say you value relationships, but you're always too busy. You say you want peace, but you fill every silence with distraction. This misalignment creates internal chaos. And no planner, no productivity hack, no morning routine can fix it. Because the problem isn't what you're doing. It's that what you're doing doesn't reflect who you actually are or who you want to become. Marcus Aurelius understood this at a soul level. He wasn't just an emperor managing tasks. He was a human being trying to live with integrity in a world designed to pull him away from it. And this brings us to the second lesson. Lesson 2. Organization begins with alignment between your values and your actions. Imagine a tree. Its roots dig deep into the earth, drawing nourishment. Its trunk stands firm, connecting root to branch. Its leaves reach toward the sun, taking in light. Every part of the tree exists in harmony with every other part. There's no conflict, no waste, no confusion about purpose. Now imagine a tree where the roots are trying to grow upward. The trunk is bending in 3 directions at once, and the leaves are fighting for space instead of cooperating. That tree is dying. Not from external attack, but from internal contradiction. Your life is either the first tree or the second. And if it's the second, no amount of time management will save you. You need something deeper, clarification of what you actually value, followed by ruthless alignment of your daily actions with those values. Marcus wrote in his Meditations, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This wasn't motivational rhetoric. It was a psychological insight. Most people know what they value. They just don't live like they know. They argue with themselves, negotiate, make exceptions, tell themselves just this once, or when things calm down, or next month I'll start. But life never calms down. There is no perfect moment. There is only this moment and the choice you make within it. Let me share another story with you. There was a woman who felt perpetually scattered. She had a demanding job, 3 kids, aging parents who needed care, friendships she neglected, and dreams she'd stopped pursuing. Every day felt like a crisis. She tried every organizational system, color-coded calendars, meal prep Sundays, wake up at 5 routines. Nothing worked for long. Then she did something different. She stopped trying to organize her tasks and started examining her values. She wrote down what actually mattered to her, not what she thought should matter. Family connection, creative expression, physical health, spiritual depth. Then she looked at her calendar and asked a brutal question. Where are my values in this schedule? The answer was devastating. Her calendar was full, but almost nothing in it reflected what she claimed to value. She was busy, exhausted, productive, and completely disconnected from her own life. So she made changes, not dramatic ones, small alignments. She stopped attending meetings that didn't serve her core values. She created 15-minute pockets of connection with her kids instead of waiting for quality time that never came. She said no to things that looked good on paper but felt empty in practice. Within months, her life didn't become less busy, but it became coherent, organized not by efficiency but by meaning. And that made all the difference. This is the psychological truth Marcus intuited. Human beings are not machines that need optimization. We're meaning-seeking creatures who need coherence. When your life reflects what you value, you feel organized even in chaos. When it doesn't, you feel scattered even in calm. Lesson 3. Eliminate what doesn't serve your highest self. Marcus was an emperor, but he lived with startling simplicity. He could have indulged in every luxury Rome offered. Instead, he practiced voluntary discomfort, cold baths, simple food, sleeping on hard surfaces. Why? Because he understood that every unnecessary thing you hold on to takes energy to maintain. This applies not just to possessions, but to commitments, relationships, habits, and thoughts. Every obligation that doesn't align with your values drains you. Every relationship based on expectation rather than authenticity depletes you. Every habit you maintain out of guilt or fear weakens you. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature. Not nature as in trees and rivers, but nature as in your essential self, the core of who you are beneath the social conditioning, the trauma responses, the inherited beliefs you never questioned. When you eliminate what doesn't serve this essential self, something miraculous happens. You don't have less. You have more. More energy, more clarity, more presence, more peace. Because you're no longer divided against yourself. Think of your attention as currency. Most people are bankrupt not because they don't have enough attention, but because they're spending it on things that don't matter. Scrolling, worrying, maintaining appearances, arguing about politics with strangers, dwelling on slights from years ago, fantasizing about futures that will never arrive. Marcus would look at this and ask, is this necessary? And if the answer was no, he would let it go. Not with violence or force, but with the gentle release of someone setting down a heavy stone they never needed to carry. Now we arrive at the heart of the matter, transformation. Because understanding these lessons intellectually changes nothing. You must embody them. You must practice them. You must let them reshape you from the inside out. Lesson 4. Your morning sets the tone for your entire day. Begin with intention, not reaction. Marcus Aurelius had a morning practice. Before he dealt with senators, before he reviewed military reports, before he attended to the 1,000 demands of empire, he would sit with his thoughts. He would prepare his mind. He would remind himself of his principles. He would visualize the challenges ahead and decide in advance how he would respond. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." This wasn't pessimism. It was preparation. By acknowledging in advance what he would face, he removed the element of surprise. He wouldn't be shocked by difficulty. He wouldn't be derailed by conflict. He had already decided how he would show up. Compare this to how most people begin their day. They reach for their phone before they've fully woken. They scroll through news designed to trigger anxiety. They check messages that demand immediate response. They flood their nervous system with stress hormones before they've even gotten out of bed. Then they wonder why they feel disorganized. Your morning is sacred, not in a religious sense, but in a psychological one. The first hour after waking determines the neurological state you'll operate from for the rest of the day. If you begin in reaction, responding to external demands, consuming information, jumping straight into problem solving, You set your nervous system to a state of perpetual urgency. But if you begin with intention, silence, breath, reflection, movement, connection to your values, you anchor yourself. You remember who you are. You reconnect with what matters. And from that place, you can face whatever the day brings without losing yourself in it. Here's a practice Marcus would recognize. Wake up 15 minutes earlier than you think you need to. Don't touch your phone. Sit in silence. Ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What do I value most today? 2. What challenge will I likely face, and how do I want to respond to it? 3. What is one thing I can do today that my future self will thank me for? These aren't productivity questions. They're alignment questions. They reconnect you with your center so that when life pulls you in 1,000 directions, you know which direction is actually yours. Lesson 5. Your evening determines the quality of your sleep and the peace of your soul. End with reflection, not distraction. Just as Marcus prepared his mind in the morning, he reviewed it in the evening. The Stoics practiced something called the evening review, a gentle examination of the day, not to judge or criticize, but to learn and integrate. Marcus would ask himself, where did I act in accordance with my values? Where did I react instead of respond? Where did I let external events disturb my inner peace? What can I learn from today that will make me wiser tomorrow? This practice serves 2 purposes. First, it prevents the accumulation of unconscious patterns. When you review your day with honest awareness, you catch the small misalignments before they become ingrained habits. Second, it creates closure. It allows your mind to process and release the day instead of carrying it into sleep, where it ferments into anxiety and fractured rest. Most people end their day the same way they began it, scrolling, consuming, distracting. They avoid the silence where reflection happens. They numb the discomfort where growth lives. Then they lie in bed with racing thoughts, replaying conflicts, rehearsing future conversations, unable to settle into rest. The evening review changes this. 10 minutes before bed, no screens, just you in a journal or you in the quiet darkness of your room. Not to analyze or fix, but simply to witness. This was today. This is what happened. This is how I showed up. This is what I learned. When you practice this consistently, something profound occurs. You begin to trust yourself, because you know that even if you stumble during the day, even if you react instead of respond, even if you fall short of your values, you will return to yourself in the evening. You will learn. You will adjust. You will try again tomorrow. This is how Marcus survived as emperor, not by being perfect, but by being committed to continuous self-correction. He failed constantly. He lost his temper. He made political mistakes. He struggled with grief after losing multiple children, but every evening he returned to himself. He reflected. He learned. He prepared to try again. There are teachings of Marcus Aurelius that most people never encounter, not because they're secret, but because they require a level of psychological maturity to truly understand. These are the lessons that separate philosophy from transformation. Lesson 6. Everything you're avoiding is teaching you something essential. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is perhaps the most misunderstood teaching in Stoicism. People read it as motivational, turn obstacles into opportunities. But it's much deeper than that. What Marcus understood is that the things you resist, the situations you avoid, the emotions you suppress, these aren't obstacles to your growth. They are your growth. The universe isn't punishing you with difficulty. It's offering you exactly the curriculum you need to become who you're meant to be. You say you want to be courageous. The universe sends you fear. You say you want to be patient. The universe sends you frustration. You say you want to be loving. The universe sends you someone difficult to love. This isn't cruelty, it's education. Most people organize their lives around avoidance. They structure their days to minimize discomfort, to maintain control, to prevent the very experiences that would transform them. They call this self-care or boundaries. And sometimes it is. but often it's just fear wearing a spiritual costume. True organization isn't about eliminating challenges. It's about positioning yourself to meet them with wisdom. When you stop avoiding what's difficult, you stop wasting energy on resistance. That energy becomes available for engagement, for learning, for transformation. There was a man who spent years avoiding conflict. He would agree to things he didn't want to do. He would smile through resentment. He would sacrifice his truth to maintain peace. He thought he was being kind, but he was really just afraid. Eventually, his life collapsed under the weight of accumulated inauthenticity, and in that collapse he discovered something Marcus knew. The thing you're most afraid of is usually the doorway to your freedom. He learned to have difficult conversations, not aggressively but honestly. He learned to disappoint people who needed disappointing. He learned that real peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from having the courage to engage it with integrity. Lesson 7. Death is not your enemy. Forgetting to live is. Marcus was obsessed with death, but not in a morbid way, in a clarifying way. He used awareness of mortality as a lens to see what actually mattered. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This teaching disturbs most people. They want to focus on positive things, on abundance, on manifestation. Death feels negative. But Marcus understood that death awareness is the ultimate organizational tool, because when you truly internalize that your time here is finite, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop holding grudges. You stop delaying joy. You stop putting off the conversation, the trip, the risk, the truth. Not because you're anxious about death, but because you're awake to life. People who avoid thinking about death often live as if they have infinite time. They procrastinate on meaning. They delay purpose. They tell themselves someday while years slip past unnoticed. Then one day they wake up and realize, this is someday, and it's almost over. Marcus faced death constantly, in battle, in plague, in the fragility of his own health. He lost children, friends, colleagues. He knew intimately that life makes no promises, and this knowledge didn't make him depressed. It made him present. It made him grateful. It made him fierce in his commitment to live with integrity while he still could. There's a practice the Stoics used called negative visualization, not to cultivate anxiety, but to cultivate appreciation. Before sleep, Marcus would imagine losing everything he valued, his position, his health, his loved ones. Not to torture himself, but to remind himself that everything he had was borrowed, temporary, precious. When you truly feel this, not just intellectually but in your bones, you organize your life very differently. You stop accumulating what doesn't matter. You stop maintaining relationships that drain you. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop waiting for permission to become who you already are. Lesson 8. Your thoughts are not facts. They're mental events you can observe. This is perhaps Marcus's most psychologically sophisticated teaching. Throughout his meditations, he reminds himself, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret what happens to you. Modern psychology calls this cognitive diffusion, the ability to separate yourself from your thoughts, to observe them without being controlled by them. Marcus practiced this 20 centuries before it became a therapeutic technique. He would write, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant." But notice what he's doing. He's not predicting the future. He's preparing his mind. He's creating space between stimulus and response. He's practicing the awareness that his interpretation of events is more powerful than the events themselves. Most people are completely identified with their thoughts. A thought arises, I'm not good enough, and they believe it. Another thought, this will never work out, and they feel defeated. They don't realize they have a choice. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. This distinction changes everything. When a thought of anxiety arises, instead of becoming anxious, you can notice, there's an anxious thought. When a thought of inadequacy appears, instead of collapsing into it, you can observe, there's that old story again. This creates space, And in that space, you have freedom. The freedom to choose which thoughts to engage with and which to let pass. The freedom to question narratives that have controlled you for years. The freedom to organize your internal world instead of being organized by it. Now let's bring all of this into your actual, messy, complicated, beautiful life. Because philosophy that stays abstract is just entertainment. Real wisdom changes how you live. Lesson 9. Build your life around non-negotiables, then let everything else be flexible. Marcus had very few non-negotiables. Act with virtue, serve the common good, remain true to reason. Everything else, his preferences, his comforts, his desires, was negotiable. This gave him incredible freedom, because he wasn't attached to outcomes he couldn't control. Most people do the opposite. They're flexible about their values but rigid about their preferences. They'll compromise their integrity for comfort. They'll sacrifice meaning for security. They'll abandon their truth to fit in. Then they wonder why their lives feel hollow. Organized living begins with identifying your non-negotiables. Not what you think they should be. Not what sounds impressive, but what is actually true for you. What would you protect even if it cost you everything else? For one person, it might be, I will always speak my truth with kindness. For another, I will never abandon my creative practice. For another, I will show up for my children with presence no matter how busy I am. These become your anchors. Everything else can shift. Your job can change. Your routines can adapt. Your plans can evolve. But your non-negotiables remain steady. And that steadiness creates organization even in chaos. Here's how to practice this. Write down 3 non-negotiables. Things you absolutely will not compromise on. Then look at your calendar, your commitments, your relationships. Ask honestly, am I honoring these? Where am I betraying them? What needs to change? This will be uncomfortable. You'll discover you've built a life that violates your own values. You've said yes to things that should have been no. You've prioritized what's urgent over what's important. But this discomfort is the beginning of alignment. And alignment is the only real organization there is. Lesson 10. You don't need more time. You need more presence. Marcus governed an empire, commanded armies, dealt with constant crises. He didn't have free time. He had the same 24 hours you have. The difference? He was fully present in whatever he was doing. When he was with his children, he was with his children. When he was making a decision, he was making a decision. When he was reflecting, he was reflecting. He wasn't scattered across multiple timelines, regretting the past, anxious about the future, distracted in the present. The myth of modern life is that you need more time. You don't. You need to stop fragmenting the time you have. Every moment you spend half present is a moment wasted. Every conversation you have while checking your phone is a conversation you're not really having. Every task you do while worrying about the next task is a task you're doing poorly. Presence is the ultimate organizational tool, because when you're fully here, you make better decisions. You connect more deeply. You work more effectively. You rest more completely. You live more fully. There was a father who always felt guilty. He worked long hours and spent his evenings exhausted. He told himself he didn't have enough time for his kids. Then someone asked him, when you are with them, are you actually with them? Or are you thinking about work, checking messages, half listening while planning tomorrow? The question shattered him, because he realized he had time. He just wasn't using it well. So he made a change. 30 minutes every evening, no phone, no distractions, fully present with his children. That's it. 30 minutes of true presence, and it changed everything. Not because 30 minutes is a lot of time, but because those 30 minutes were whole, undivided, real. His children felt it. He felt it. The guilt dissolved because he wasn't abandoning them anymore, even when he was physically present. This is the final lesson Marcus offers. Stop trying to have more. Learn to be more present, more intentional, more aligned, more true. When you organize your inner world, your outer world organizes itself. Not perfectly, Not without challenge, but with meaning, with coherence, with a sense that you're finally living your life instead of just managing it. There's something I need you to understand before we close. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations for us. He wrote them for himself. They were private journals never meant to be published. He was speaking to his own soul, trying to remember who he wanted to be in the face of overwhelming difficulty. He struggled. He doubted. He failed. He got angry at people who disappointed him. He grieved losses that nearly destroyed him. He was human, beautifully, completely human. And yet, in the middle of all that humanity, he chose to organize his life around something greater than comfort, greater than success, greater than survival. He chose to organize it around virtue, around integrity, around the question, what does it mean to live well? That question is yours now. You don't need to be an emperor to live with this kind of intentionality. You don't need to be enlightened or evolved or perfect. You just need to be willing to look honestly at your life and ask, does this reflect who I actually am? Does this serve what I actually value? Am I living or am I just reacting? These 10 lessons aren't rules to follow. They're invitations to remember something you already know but may have forgotten. You have the power to organize your life from the inside out, not by controlling every circumstance, not by optimizing every moment, but by choosing, again and again, to align your actions with your values, your attention with what matters, your presence with this unrepeatable moment. The chaos around you will never fully disappear. That's not the goal. The goal is to find the stillness within it, the clarity within the confusion, the meaning within the mundane. Marcus found that. In the middle of an empire collapsing around him, he found peace, not by escaping his circumstances, but by organizing his response to them. You can too. So here's what I want you to do. Don't try to implement all 10 lessons at once. That's not how transformation works. Choose one, just one. The one that struck you most deeply as we move through this together. Maybe it's the lesson about controlling what you can control and releasing what you can't. Maybe it's the practice of aligning your actions with your values. Maybe it's the morning intention or the evening review. Maybe it's the awareness that what you're avoiding is actually teaching you something essential. Choose one. Practice it for 30 days. Not perfectly, just consistently. Let it change you. Then come back and choose another. Because this is how you organize a life. Not all at once, but one intentional choice at a time. One aligned action after another. One moment of presence building on the last. Marcus Aurelius left us with one final thought that I want to leave you with. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. The same applies to you. Waste no more time imagining what an organized life looks like. Build one, starting now, starting here. Starting with the very next choice you make after you finish watching this video. Your life is waiting for you to step into it fully. Not someday. Today. Not when things calm down. Right now. Not when you're ready. You're ready now. Organize your life around what matters. The rest will follow. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking this journey with me into the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring how ancient wisdom can transform modern life. Until then, remember, you are not your circumstances. You are how you respond to them. Choose wisely.